was sitting in my living room, glass of iced tea in hand, enjoying the rare quiet of Maple Street. The evening sun cast a warm glow over the neatly trimmed lawns, and for once, everything felt normal. Too normal, maybe. You know that feeling when something's off, but you can't put your finger on it? Yeah, that feeling hit me right as the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was just another neighbor stopping by with cookies or some HOA announcement. But the knock had a sharp edge to it, impatient, almost aggressive. I froze, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe a package delivery? No, that wouldn't explain the three shadows looming on my porch through the frosted glass. I walked cautiously to the door and peeked through the peephole. 3 men stood there, 2 in ill-fitting suits, one sweating like he'd sprinted a mile in a snowstorm, holding a clipboard. The third looked like he found a badge in a Halloween store. Their eyes darted around, avoiding mine, and my stomach tightened. "Good evening, sir," one of them said, voice too loud, too rehearsed. "We're with the Homeowners Association, emergency inspection, we need to come in." I blinked. Emergency inspection at 6:30 p.m. on a Wednesday? Something about that didn't sit right. Sure, can I see some ID first?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. One of them fumbled through a pocket, pulling out what looked like a laminated sheet of paper with Comic Sans text stapled crookedly. "This is, official," he stammered. I had to bite back a laugh. I've seen college ID cards with more credibility. The tension in my chest grew as they shifted, each taking a step forward. My dog, Rufus, a scrappy German shepherd with more sense than most humans, started growling low in his throat. His hackles rose. That usually means one thing: danger. And if Rufus senses danger, I pay attention. I held up a hand. "Hold on, you're not walking-ins." They glanced at each other, confusion flickering across their faces. The imposters thought I was just some average guy who would roll over for a fake badge and a clipboard. They didn't know me. And trust me, they were about to find out the hard way. The tallest one tried to push past me. "Sir, we have the authority." "Authority?" I chuckled, but only on the inside. I didn't need to explain who I was yet. Calm, collected, always in control, that's my style. I stepped in front of the door, blocking their way, and kept my hand near my side. They didn't see it yet, but I wasn't just another homeowner who paid dues and prayed the HOA wouldn't ruin their day. "Listen," I said, keeping my tone even, the kind of tone that doesn't invite argument. "You're going to step back right now." One of them, the shortest, with a nervous twitch in his eye, swallowed hard. The other 2 started sweating, glancing at each other like they were in some bad sitcom. I could almost hear the gears turning in their heads. Did we pick the wrong house? And then it happened. The one in the cheap badge, the one trying to look important, reached for his belt, fumbling nervously. That's when my heart rate spiked. Something in his movement screamed, not HOA, not inspection, danger. Rufus barked, loud and sharp. The neighbors peeked from behind their curtains. Some probably thought I was overreacting, but I knew better. I'd been trained for this. I'd seen people like this before, fake authority figures trying to scare the wrong person, and I was not that person. I straightened up, my voice dropping just a notch. Calm, quiet, but deadly serious. "Step back, or things are going to get complicated." The imposters froze, and I swear for a second time slowed. Their fake badges, their crooked clipboards, their forced smiles, it all became absurd in that frozen moment, but I didn't laugh, not yet. Because behind their eyes I could see it, panic. They realized they'd underestimated me and they were about to regret it. I just didn't know yet how far this was going to go. I could feel the tension crackle in the air like static electricity. The imposters weren't moving now, but their eyes darted nervously. One of them kept fidgeting with that pathetic clipboard while the other 2 glanced over their shoulders as if they expected reinforcements to magically appear. Funny thing, this wasn't some ordinary HOA dispute. This was way bigger, and they were about to find that out. "Sir, we really need to," the tallest one started again, his voice quivering slightly. I held up a hand. "No, step back now." He hesitated, and in that hesitation I noticed something. The shortest guy, the one who had the most fake confidence, kept brushing his hand near his jacket pocket, twitching as if he wanted to pull something out. My pulse quickened, but I stayed calm. Calm is your secret weapon in moments like this. Panic is theirs, composure is mine. "Look," I said slowly, "I don't care about your little inspection. I don't care about your rules. You don't have the authority you think you do." They exchanged glances, confusion flickering across their faces. I could almost hear the gears in their heads whirring. Why is he not scared? Why isn't he backing down? Rufus took a step forward, growling low, his eyes locked on the imposters. The one with the clipboard flinched. The tallest man's lip curled nervously. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about them underestimating the wrong guy. You have no idea who you're dealing with, I said, keeping my voice steady but carrying an edge that made even me shiver a little inside. The short one's hand twitched again toward his pocket. That's when I knew they were thinking about escalating. Bad idea. One of them tried to laugh it off, a weak, forced chuckle. We're just doing our job, sir. You understand, rules are rules. I raised an eyebrow. Rules, huh? My eyes scanned the flimsy badges and crooked documents. Because last time I checked, no rule gives someone the right to force their way into a private home. And you're not even HOA. The color drained from their faces as realization began to dawn. They had walked in thinking intimidation would be enough. But I wasn't a regular resident. They had no idea who I was. The tension was almost unbearable. You could feel it vibrating through the air. My hands itched for action, but I stayed rooted, watching their every movement. I needed them to make the next mistake themselves. The short one finally made it. His hand slipped under the jacket. Panic flickered in his eyes. I could see it, the moment where fear collides with poor judgment. Stop, I barked, and Rufus stepped forward, a low warning rumble that echoed off the walls. The imposters froze mid-motion. One wrong move, and this would end badly for them. They realized they were trapped, outsmarted, and most importantly, completely unprepared. Then, like a scene from some suburban thriller, a neighbor's window slid open above. I could hear whispered voices, curious, anxious, perfect, more witnesses. That pressure made the imposters hesitate. I kept my tone calm, measured. You made a mistake walking up to this house. You should leave, now. The tallest one swallowed hard. We can explain. Explain what? I interrupted, stepping closer. Calm, slow, deliberate, every inch I closed made them shrink back. How you thought you could intimidate the wrong person? How you thought fake badges and clipboards would scare me? Explain that. Their faces went pale. They could feel it, the walls closing in, the panic setting in. I saw the fleeting flash of doubt in their eyes. This guy isn't just bluffing, he's serious, he's capable. Rufus barked again, louder this time. The imposters flinched. And then the shortest one muttered under his breath, we shouldn't have picked this house. That's when I knew I had them exactly where I wanted, but I also knew it wasn't over, not by a long shot. Something in their behavior told me this wasn't a random break-in. They had a bigger plan, and they weren't going down without a fight. I clenched my fists, controlled my breathing, and prepared for whatever came next. Every instinct screamed caution, but every fiber of my being told me I was in control. And yet, the air was thick with anticipation, like a storm about to hit, and I could feel it. The night was far from over. And as I stared at the trembling imposters, I knew one thing for certain. This confrontation was only the beginning. Their eyes widened as I stayed calm, standing in the doorway, every muscle relaxed but ready. I could see it, panic flickering across their faces, the twitching hands, the nervous glances at each other. They thought they were in control. They thought a fake badge and some intimidating words would be enough to force their way into my house. They were dead wrong. I let a pause hang in the air long enough for them to sweat bullets. Silence is a weapon, it amplifies fear, and right now it was my ally. Then slowly, deliberately, I reached into my jacket and pulled out the real thing, my federal sheriff badge. The metal caught the light of the porch lamp, gleaming, official, undeniable. I didn't rush, didn't make a showy flourish, I let it speak for itself. Their mouths opened and closed like fish out of water. The shortest one dropped the clipboard with a loud thunk, scrambling backward, tripping over his own feet. The tallest one froze mid-step, his hand halfway toward his belt. The third just blinked, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. You're, stammered the tallest one, his voice breaking. Yes, I said calmly, voice steady, carrying the weight of authority. I'm the federal sheriff assigned to this district, and you just tried to break into a federal officer's home under the guise of what exactly? HOA inspection. They swallowed hard, the color draining from their faces. Sweat beaded on foreheads, and their earlier bravado evaporated completely. Their fake authority meant nothing now, nothing. I could see their panic intensifying. They glanced around nervously as if hopping for reinforcements, some secret backup to swoop in and save them, but they were alone, completely exposed. Rufus barked, low and threatening, circling at my side. I put a hand on his back, letting him know we were a team. They were about to realize that no bluff, no fake badge, no intimidating posture would save them from what was coming. The shortest one muttered, we didn't know. Didn't know what? I asked, tilting my head, letting the suspense hang. That your little game had consequences, that you were picking the wrong house, the wrong person. Their breaths came fast, shallow. They were cornered, but I didn't rush. I wanted them to feel the full weight of their mistake, to understand just how badly they'd underestimated me. You have no idea how dangerous it is to impersonate authority, I continued, voice calm but cold, and you certainly have no idea who you're dealing with. I stepped slightly closer and I could see the fear in their eyes deepen. They were imagining the headlines, the paperwork, the arrests, they were picturing the end of their little scheme, and they were right to be scared. Then the one with the clipboard stammered, we can explain. I raised a hand to cut him off. No explanations, there's nothing to explain. You tried to intimidate a federal officer and trespass into a private home. That's not just illegal, that's stupid. And lucky for you, I'm in a good mood tonight. A flicker of hope passed over their faces, quickly smothered by the realization that they had nowhere to run. Every exit, every weak excuse, every feeble bluff, they had exhausted it all. I glanced around my porch, the street, the quiet suburban homes. I could already see the neighbors peeking through windows, curious, tense, whispering to each other. They were getting a live demonstration of why some things are better left alone, the danger of underestimating the wrong person. Then softly, almost like a whisper, I said, "Step back and stay back, or this night is going to get a lot more complicated for you." Their trembling intensified. The tallest one's hand twitched near his belt again, and I knew if he made another move, it would be the last mistake he'd make that night. But I didn't act yet. I let the tension build. The fear, the uncertainty, the complete collapse of their confidence, that was the real power right now. And in that silence, I realized something. This wasn't just about stopping them from breaking in. This was a test of how far people will go when they think they can intimidate someone who isn't afraid. And for the first time that night, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Because they didn't just underestimate the house, they underestimated me, and that's a mistake they'd never make again. I could see it in their eyes, the moment when fear collided with panic and the faint glimmer of desperation appeared. They were no longer just trespassers, they were trapped predators realizing the prey could fight back. But even in their fear, I sensed something bigger. This wasn't just a random break-in. These imposters had a plan, and it wasn't small. I leaned slightly forward, keeping my voice calm but heavy with authority. "You didn't come here by accident, this was planned, wasn't it?" The tallest one swallowed hard, sweat sliding down his temple. We have to, we were just following orders," he muttered, his words trembling. "Orders," I repeated, incredulous. "From who? Another fake HOA board, some wannabe gangster thinking a clipboard gives him power." The shortest one's hands trembled as he fumbled with his jacket. I noticed a small, crudely folded map sticking out from under the lining. They had clearly been marking the houses in the neighborhood, target after target. Their scheme wasn't just to intimidate me, it was to control this street, to scare residents into submission, and that realization made my blood run cold. I took a deliberate step closer, forcing them to shrink back. Rufus growled, low and threatening, circling at my side. The imposters realized they weren't dealing with a scared homeowner, they were facing someone trained to anticipate moves, to read panic, to exploit hesitation. "Listen," I said, voice low and dangerous. "You've been sneaking around, threatening neighbors, impersonating officials, thinking no one would notice. But I noticed. And lucky for me, I'm not just some guy who pays HOA fees." Their eyes widened again, a mix of terror and disbelief. One of them, the tallest, stammered, We didn't know you were." "Federal law enforcement," I supplied, letting it hang in the air, heavy and undeniable. Their jaws tightened. "You didn't think anyone would call your bluff, you didn't think someone could actually stop you." I moved my gaze to the map peeking out of the shortest one's jacket. "This map tells me everything, all your targets, your schedule, your little plan, and it's amateur at best. You could have at least tried harder." The middle one, whose fake badge was slipping down his chest, muttered, We were told you'd be out." "And you believed it," I said, incredulous. "You believed this neighborhood could be controlled by fear and fake badges, you thought you'd get away with it." Panic started to ripple through them. Their coordinated facade was cracking, each man now only thinking about self-preservation. But I didn't let up. I pressed the advantage, keeping them on edge. "You're going to answer some questions," I continued, tone calm but deadly. "But first, why target this neighborhood? Why risk arrest, exposure, humiliation, and," I let the words sink in, "the potential of federal charges?" The shortest one stammered, We didn't pick it, we just followed orders, please, we didn't." Orders, right, they were pawns, but pawns can still fall hard if you know how to handle them, and I did. I circled slightly, like a predator sizing up its prey. Rufus stayed at my side, alert and ready. I could feel the imposters' tension radiating off them. Every twitch, every glance, every stumble betrayed them. They had underestimated me, underestimated the neighborhood, underestimated the law itself. Then the tallest one, breaking under pressure, whispered, "There's someone else, someone backing us higher up." I froze for a heartbeat, letting his words sink. There it was, the real danger, the unseen hand behind this scheme. But I didn't panic, I never panic. Instead, I let the suspense linger, letting them sweat every word, every movement, every mistake. "You think this ends here?" I asked, voice low, measured, letting every syllable land. "No, this ends when justice is served. And right now, that starts with you two explaining exactly who you are, what you're planning, and why you thought you could intimidate anyone on my street." The imposters looked at each other, eyes wide, realizing that their plan was unraveling and they had nowhere to run. Their panic was real now. The street, the windows, the neighbors, all silent witnesses, they were caught, exposed, and completely out of their depth. I knew one thing for certain, the night wasn't over. Their scheme was bigger than I thought, and the real danger might still be lurking. But that didn't matter yet. What mattered was the control, the power, the realization that the hunter was now fully aware of its prey, and the prey had claws. And as I stared at the trembling imposters, I allowed a slow, almost imperceptible smile to cross my face. This was just the beginning. By now, the imposters were shaking visibly. The tallest one's hand twitched near his jacket pocket again, the shortest one kept glancing over his shoulder like a cornered animal, and the middle one was sweating so badly I could see his shirt clinging to his chest. They had thought intimidation would work. They had thought fear alone would make me step aside. They were wrong, dead wrong. I took a measured step forward, my boots clicking softly on the porch. Rufus flanked me, low growl rumbling in his throat, a silent warning that I wasn't alone, and neither were they. I could feel the air tighten, thick with panic, with anticipation, with the realization that these men had no idea what they were in for. "Listen closely," I said, my voice calm but firm, every word deliberate. "You've walked into the wrong house at the wrong time, and you've chosen the wrong person to intimidate, and now you're going to fix it, starting now." The shortest one stammered, We can leave, please, we can leave." "Not yet," I interrupted, stepping closer. "I need answers, and I need cooperation." My eyes scanned them like a predator, mapping every possible escape route. There wasn't one. I reached toward my belt and unclipped my radio. The imposters froze. They didn't know what I'd do, but they knew it wouldn't be pleasant. I clicked the microphone, keeping it low. "Central, this is Maple Street. I have multiple suspects impersonating HOA officials. Prepare for detainment." The tallest one's face went pale. You're calling for backup." "Already done," I replied casually, though the weight behind my words made them feel like a hammer. "And while you wait, you're going to tell me everything." I noticed their glances flicking toward the windows, toward the street. Neighbors were peeking, whispering, probably calling their own friends to witness what was happening. The imposters were fully exposed now. Every lie, every fake badge, every bluff, they were all crumbling. I circled them slowly, observing reactions, letting the tension mount. Every twitch, every gulp, every tiny movement told me more than any words could. The map tucked in the shortest one's jacket had been their blueprint. I needed to secure it before anyone got any wild ideas about running. "You," I said, pointing at the middle man, "take out the map. Slowly, hands where I can see them." He hesitated, and in that moment I could see the panic escalate. He slowly produced the folded map, hands shaking. I grabbed it, scanning every detail. Street after street marked, times noted, targets highlighted. It was sloppy but effective if I hadn't been here. "Now," I continued, "we talk. Who told you to do this? What's the plan? And more importantly, why target my neighborhood?" The tallest one started babbling, names, excuses, false hierarchies, all mixed with fear and desperation. The shortest one muttered about someone higher up, someone who had orchestrated the intimidation campaign. They were unraveling before my eyes, each word a confession, each hesitation a nail in their scheme's coffin. Then the shortest one tried a desperate move. His hand flicked toward his jacket again. Rufus barked sharply, lunging a little closer. That tiny instinctive movement froze him instantly. He realized I wasn't bluffing. I didn't move, didn't need to. My presence, my calm, my authority, all of it was enough to stop him. "You are going to stay exactly where you are," I said slowly, letting every syllable land. "One wrong move and it's over, do you understand?" They nodded frantically, eyes wide, sweat dripping. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes time stretch out, every second dragging like a rope through the mud. They were cornered, trapped, and fully aware that their bluff had failed. I leaned back slightly, letting them breathe just enough to feel the full weight of their mistake. "Good, now we continue. Every question you answer, every detail you give me is a step toward keeping yourself out of real trouble. You've already made one massive error. Let's not make another." And in that moment, I knew the night was far from over. The imposters had made their move, but I had taken control. Every twitch, every glance, every bead of sweat, I could read it all. The hunter had become the hunted, and I was just getting started. The imposter's panic was palpable now. Every twitch, every shiver, every desperate glance screamed fear, but I kept my movements deliberate, calm, controlled. Rufus stayed at my side, growling low, letting them know that any sudden motion would be met with force. And believe me, I wasn't bluffing. "Hands where I can see them," I repeated, voice firm but quiet, letting the tension sink in. The tallest one raised them shakily, like a child caught stealing candy. The middle one followed, still trembling, the shortest one wiping sweat from his brow as if that could erase the mistake they'd made by walking up to my door. I reached for my cuffs, the metal clicked as I pulled them out, and I swear you could almost see their eyes widen in slow motion. The realization hit them all at once. This wasn't just about being caught, it was about consequences, serious ones. "Step by step," I said, voice steady. "You will be detained safely. No sudden moves, no talking over each other. This is your only chance to cooperate without making things worse." The shortest one tried to whisper something, probably a last-minute excuse, but I cut him off with a glare. Silence is power. Every second I let pass without them speaking only amplified the weight of what was about to happen. Rufus stepped forward slightly, enough to assert dominance without being aggressive. The imposters flinched. They were cornered. They knew they couldn't run, and they knew I wasn't bluffing. I approached the tallest one first. My hands moved slowly, deliberately, as I secured the cuffs around his wrists. He trembled so badly that I had to adjust my grip a few times. I didn't say anything, there was no need. His fear said it all. Next was the middle man. His breathing was fast and shallow. I could see the shame, the panic, the realization that he had just gambled with the wrong house. One wrong move and it would have gone far worse than cuffs. I clicked them into place, listening to the subtle clinks that marked their fall from supposed authority to complete submission. Finally, the shortest one, the one with the map, looked like he wanted to vanish into thin air. I grabbed the folded document, scanning it quickly before securing him. Every detail mattered: targets, addresses, times. Their plan, painstakingly mapped out, now in my hands, and every mistake they had made tonight only strengthened my position. I glanced toward the street. Neighbors were peeking through windows, whispers buzzing like static. Some were recording with their phones, others frozen, wide-eyed. This was the perfect mix of humiliation and justice for the imposters. I let that tension hang in the air a moment longer, let them stew in it, let them understand just how badly they had miscalculated. The imposters were cuffed, trapped, and realizing that the night had gone completely sideways. But I wasn't done yet, not entirely. There was one more step: the follow-through. "Now," I said, voice low and calm, "you're going to tell me everything. Names, contacts, why you targeted this neighborhood and who sent you. Every detail counts. Every lie you tell from this point on will only make your situation worse." They stammered, voices quivering, names spilling out like water from a burst dam. I didn't rush. I let them talk, watching every flinch, every hesitation. This was the moment where their carefully built facade collapsed completely. Then, as I was taking in the confession, a sudden noise at the back door made my blood run cold. Another shadow, another possible accomplice. My pulse quickened. I wasn't about to let this night get any more complicated, but something told me there was still more to uncover. I signaled Rufus, who crouched low, alert. The imposters froze again, realizing that the tension wasn't over. The street, the porch, the entire block felt like it was holding its breath. And I felt the familiar surge, the moment right before action, the moment where calm control meets imminent danger. The night was far from over. The imposters had been detained, yes, but I could feel the storm still brewing. Someone higher up, someone smarter, had orchestrated this mess, and I wasn't going to let them slip away unnoticed, not on my street, not on my watch. As the imposters muttered their final pleas and confessions, I tightened my grip on the cuffs, keeping them in check, eyes darting toward the back door. Rufus growled again, low and dangerous. The tension was unbearable, every second stretched like a rope through tar. And I knew it, this was the calm before the next storm. The imposters were caught, but the real game, the hidden hand behind this plot, was yet to reveal itself, and when it did, I would be ready. By the time I secured the imposters, the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every twitch, every shiver, every desperate glance told me the night wasn't over. But the neighborhood, well, they were already buzzing. Windows opened slowly, curtains pulled aside. Phones appeared in trembling hands, capturing the unfolding chaos. I could hear whispers traveling down the street. "Did you see that? He's a sheriff. Are those really fake HOA guys?" I knew something was off with them. I allowed myself a brief glance at the street. The neighbors' reactions were priceless. Shock, awe, fear, and a touch of giddy curiosity mixed in equal measure. Some were clapping quietly, others cautiously peeking from behind curtains. A few brave souls even edged onto their lawns, whispering to each other, trying to understand what had just happened on their block. But I didn't have time to bask in the attention. Something in the imposters' behavior caught my eye, a subtle nod, a flick of the eye toward the back alley. My pulse quickened. They weren't finished. They still had an ace hidden somewhere, someone else backing them up. I could feel it instinctively. "You didn't come alone, did you?" I asked calmly, letting every word hang in the air. The imposters trembled, realizing their bluff had been called. The tallest one stammered, We were, it's just us." "Lies," I said, narrowing my eyes. "Every hesitation tells me you've got someone else involved, someone smarter than you, someone who thought a cheap impersonation scheme would work in my neighborhood." The realization hit them like a wave. The fear returned, stronger this time, more desperate. I could see it in the way they glanced toward windows, doors, even the trees lining the street. They were terrified of an invisible threat they thought they controlled. Neighbors, oblivious to the full stakes, started murmuring among themselves. A few bold souls walked out into the street, peeking around corners, whispering to friends. Some even laughed nervously. Humor in the face of chaos, it's a natural reaction, and I understood it. But the imposters didn't find it funny, not even close. I signaled Rufus, who crouched low, eyes locked on the trio. They flinched as he growled, the tension ratcheting even higher. The street went quiet, the calm before the next storm. Then one of them whispered something so low I almost missed it. "She's here, she's watching." My head snapped toward the back door. My instincts screamed danger. A shadow moved just beyond the porch light, a subtle shift that betrayed someone hiding, observing, calculating. My pulse surged. This wasn't just a neighbor curiosity or a prankster's timing. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone had been counting on chaos, thinking these amateurs could intimidate me without consequences. I stepped closer to the imposters, voice calm but icy. "Listen carefully. You've already made one catastrophic mistake coming here. You're about to make another if you don't tell me everything. Names, plans, connections, now." The imposters trembled visibly, exchanging frantic glances. They realized the balance of power had shifted completely. Every bluff, every attempt to manipulate, they had lost it all. And now the fear of exposure wasn't just personal, it was public. Everyone on the street could see them for what they truly were. And yet the mystery remained. Who was behind them? The real architect of this scheme had yet to reveal themselves. My instincts screamed that the night's climax was still ahead, that the story wasn't over, that the true danger was lurking just out of sight, watching, calculating. I let the suspense linger, giving them a moment to sweat, to panic, to understand that their time was running out. The neighborhood's whispers, the faint clicking of phones, the subtle rustle of leaves in the alley, it all amplified the tension. Finally, I leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on the tallest imposter. "You've made a lot of mistakes tonight, but the biggest one, thinking you could intimidate my street, that you could intimidate me, that you could walk away unnoticed. Someone is watching, listening, planning, and they're about to find out that I always see the whole picture." The imposters' faces went white. They could feel it, the trap closing, the consequences mounting, the invisible hand behind this plot inching closer. They weren't just cornered, they were exposed, vulnerable, and running out of time. And in that charged silence, I realized the final act was approaching. The neighborhood had witnessed the beginning, but the end, that was mine to control. The shadow at the back door moved again, subtle but deliberate. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. I had been prepared for this moment all along, but instincts told me the night's final act was about to unfold. Whoever was backing these imposters had made a critical error. They underestimated me. I signaled Rufus, who crouched low, muscles coiled like springs. The imposters, cuffed and trembling, froze as well. They weren't just scared, they were terrified. Every confidence they had walked in with had evaporated, replaced by the stark reality of exposure. Then the back door creaked open, slow, deliberate. A figure stepped into the dim light, a woman, sharp-eyed, professional, radiating authority. The imposter's eyes widened in disbelief. Whoever they had been counting on, she wasn't the ally they expected. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" I asked, voice calm but cutting, letting the weight of authority settle over the moment. She stepped forward, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "I heard you handled everything," she said, almost teasing. "I wanted to see for myself." The imposters' faces went pale. Recognition flickered in their eyes. This wasn't a friendly visitor. This was someone who could undo every move they'd made tonight, someone far above them in both skill and authority. I turned my attention back to the trio. You thought you had backup, you thought someone higher up would protect you, but look at them now, I said, nodding toward the woman. Your whole plan is unraveling. The shortest one whimpered, please, we were told. Orders? I asked, voice steady, letting the word hang. Funny, because the only orders that matter tonight are from the law, and right now you're in my jurisdiction. Rufus growled low, circling, and the imposters flinched at every move. The woman stepped closer, badge catching the porch light. It wasn't just any badge, it was clear, authoritative, a warning that these amateurs had underestimated the wrong people. I began reading their rights aloud, slowly, deliberately, letting every word sink in. They were too stunned to resist, too shocked to move. The night's chaos had collapsed into complete control, my control. Every lie, every bluff, every act of intimidation they had attempted had failed spectacularly. Neighbors watched from windows, jaws dropped, phones recording. They would be talking about this for weeks. But I didn't have time to enjoy their awe. The imposters needed to be processed, evidence secured, and their connections traced. Their scheme wasn't just amateur, it was dangerous, and justice needed to be served. Then, just as I was about to escort them inside, the woman whispered, "There's something you need to see." She pointed subtly toward the map, still clutched in my hand. I unfolded it, scanning the streets, the marked houses, the scheduled times. And there it was, the twist. One location, circled in red, wasn't marked by the trio. Someone had planned an even bigger operation, someone smart enough to use these imposters as pawns while staying hidden. Someone I hadn't seen yet. I looked up at her, so the game isn't over. No, she said, voice low, controlled. But you've exposed the first layer, now we find the mastermind. The imposters groaned, realizing their errors had set a chain reaction they couldn't stop. Every move, every lie, every attempt at intimidation had been dismantled by someone they didn't even know was watching. I stepped back, hands on hips, letting the gravity of the night settle over the block. Rufus wagged his tail slightly, sensing the tension lift but still alert. The neighborhood was calm now, quiet except for whispered conversations and the occasional click of a recording phone. They had witnessed chaos, fear, authority, and justice unfold all in one night. I looked down at the imposters, cuffed and trembling. Remember this night, I said quietly, because it's the night you learn the hard way that some neighborhoods and some people aren't to be messed with. The woman nodded, a hint of approval in her eyes. Together, we started walking the imposters inside, evidence in hand, ready to start unraveling the rest of the plot. The night had been long, intense, and exhausting, but it was only the beginning of ensuring this neighborhood remained safe. And as the last of the imposters were secured, I allowed myself a brief, satisfied smile. Rufus barked softly as if agreeing. The street was safe for now, but the hidden hand, the mastermind, the one who had set this chain in motion, I knew I would find them. And when I did, they wouldn't just regret targeting my neighborhood, they'd regret ever underestimating me. Every HOA has a story on HOA Headaches. You'll hear the ones they tried to bury. Subscribe today.